Okay, so if the ending of Peninsula has been eating at your brains, or you're just one of the people that's dying to know what happens in the story, then this is the video for you. Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Definition, aka the guy that always looks rotten, and this video we're breaking down everything you need to know about the Train to Busan sequel and its ending. Of course, there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you don't want anything ruined about the movie, then I recommend that you turn off now. You know, we have a dedication to bad puns as well, so yeah, there'll be loads of rubbish like that too. Anyway, with all out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our breakdown of Peninsula. Okay, so Peninsula picks up in the midst of the zombie outbreak from the original film. In this movie, we discover that the virus was actually created in a biofactory in the middle of South Korea. This of course has many similarities to current conspiracy theories that center around the coronavirus, and though this movie wasn't made with a pandemic in mind, throughout there becomes a lot of similarities to what we've seen in the world today. Train to Busan detailed how people are very much doomed to fail when they make selfish decisions, and this movie too follows in the footsteps of its predecessor thematically. In that, we watch the events play out through the eyes of passengers on board a speeding train as they try to escape the country. Mirroring this, the opening of Peninsula picks up with ship captain Jung Suk and his family as they try to escape Korea by sea. On the road, they encounter a family of three, and though he initially stops to help them, after believing that the father of the trio is bitten, he quickly abandons them to their fate. This is an extremely selfish move, especially since he could have at least helped the mother and her child, and this decision very much bears consequences on Jung Suk's journey and also the ending of the film. When they reach their ride, an outbreak happens on board the ship, which ends up infecting his nephew. The boy's mother, aka his sister, refuses to abandon her child, and thus he ends up locking her in with the rest of the infected. His brother-in-law, Chul Min, returns to see his wife get torn apart, and it's a really agonizing way to start the movie. This of course shows the two sides of humanity. There are those that will abandon the ones that they love in order to survive another minute, even though their lives will be worse without them, whereas there are others that will stay no matter what. Jung Suk definitely falls into the former group, and though he gets to live longer than his sibling and his son, it's clear that his life becomes miserable because of it. Now, from the off, Peninsula is laced with English dialogue, and it's clearly being aimed towards a Western market as much as it is an Asian one. I did find these elements slightly jarring at points, but on the whole, I think they work really well to play the best of both worlds in the telling of the story. It does suck that these films kind of have to pander to us because we refuse to read subtitles, and yeah, at least this will reach a lot more people than the first movie. We predominantly learn the ins and outs of the pandemic through American voiceovers, and these detail the quarantine situation that ended up happening in Korea. The entire nation was cordoned off, and this is where the title comes from. Korea itself is a peninsula, and whereas the first film took place on board a train, this is upscaled to use most of the region for its setting. Because it's a no-go zone, refugees have flooded into other areas, and we join Jung Suk 4 years later in Hong Kong. Jung Suk has had a big fall from grace, and the ex-military man has now been reduced to living in poverty amongst a squalor neighbourhood fraught with criminals and gangsters. So, naturally, when he's offered the job of retrieving $20 million on board a truck within the quarantine zone, he reluctantly accepts it. Since the country was abandoned in the space of a day, people have been trying their luck, and they've journeyed into the gold reserves, banks, and institutions in order to loot them. Because Korean currency is now pretty worthless, the fact that this loot is in dollars will help them massively, and thus it becomes a more and more attractive offer, though I wouldn't be caught dead doing it. The dislike button's right there. Now, as we learned in the first film, the undead are almost blind at night, and thus the job should be pretty straightforward for him, Chul Min, and 2 others. However, it turns out to be a grave mistake, as when they arrive at the truck, they inadvertently alert the zombies and hordes swarm upon them. I love how there's this kind of ticking time bomb in the group in the background, and they soon find themselves stuck on the wrong side of the border with humans hunting them too. They're ambushed with flares which attract the undead, and Jung Suk only manages to make it out of there with help from Junai and her sister Yoo-jin. He abandons Chul Min to his fate, and this echoes how he abandoned his sister to die on board the boat. Chul Min has held a grudge over this, and Jung Suk must learn to be selfless, similar to those that helped him. He was definitely going to die without the help of the two siblings, and his poor decision making is hammered home when he realizes that their mother was one of the people that he refused to help pick up at the beginning. This quick decision has pretty much ruined the entire family's life, and thus they've been forced to live in a hellhole because of his misguided choice. Now, whilst it sucks for them, as an audience, I loved seeing this group, and watching Yoo-jin distracted dead with a remote control car is a brilliant moment. These aren't the only people living amongst the wasteland either, and on the other side of the coin are Unit 631, a militant group led by Sergeant Hwang. They're very much dog eat dog, and this juxtaposes the other survivors who think about their group as a whole rather than themselves. This mirrors our world in many ways, and in the midst of the global pandemic, we've sort of seen two sides to humanity. There are those that realise that in order to stop the virus, it will take a united front against it, in which we all make sacrifices, and others that are willing to break the rules for their own selfish gains. Not to get too political, but we have seen that, on the whole, people are willing to work together and make sacrifices, whereas there are some that won't even give up the littlest discomforts for a couple of months in order to not spread the disease. Though unintentional, I think these two sides very much represent this, and we watch how some are thinking long term and reaching out to entities like the UN, whilst others are happy to just recklessly descend into chaos as long as they're enjoying themselves. After picking up the truck, they discover Chul-min, and Private Kim comes across the cache and their satellite phone. He plans to escape with his ally, Captain Xiao, who are both tired of living in the loop and the monotony that the camp has turned into. Here, humans are used in gladiatorial arenas where they're forced to fight against the undead, and I very much got flashes of Escape from New York in these scenes. I would say that on the whole, the movie takes influences from the aforementioned film, Mad Max and Dawn of the Dead to paint out the best and worst of society in a really engaging way. However, it's at this point that the movie kind of lost me a bit, and I actually read a lot of reviews before the film that said it wasn't as good as the first movie. Up until this point, I probably found it on par. However, it does seem to shift too far away from the main driving force of the movie, which was the relationship between Jung Suk and Chul-min, to a rather stagnant plot that we've seen in other films. I also felt like the cities and environments were the main selling point of this movie, and being stuck in this one place did drag the pacing down in my opinion. Kim and Xiao make a deal with the gangsters that send in Jung Suk, whilst Chul-min is forced to fend for his life. To me, Hwang and Xiao are incredibly interesting characters, but both get a bit shortchanged in the end, being relegated to people that kinda get lost in the plot whilst everything heats up. I feel like these characters probably should have been combined into the same person to tell a more streamlined narrative, as in my opinion they're both done a disservice. Jung Suk tells the family about the boat and his past of abandoning them, and Min Jung tells of how 30 cars passed her and her family on the road, which I think influences his final decision. They decide to infiltrate the 631 hideout in order to get the truck and escape the peninsula. Realizing that Chul-min is alive, Jung Suk ambushes the shopping mall in which the majority of the forces are located, and he attempts to break Chul-min out. However, Chul-min is killed by Hwang, but Jung Suk is saved, and he manages to escape in the truck alongside the other members of the family, some which ride in a jeep, as the 631 try and hunt them down. This leads to a giant chase scene with the undead running after the vehicles, which the militia do too. It definitely feels like the most heart-pounding moment of the movie, and I love the use of light and the way that the vehicles turned into battering rams just to pile through the wave of zombies. It's an incredible action scene, and out of the two films, probably the tensest point between it and its sequel. They pass a location that Jung Suk encountered earlier in the movie, in which the undead were trapped behind giant walls of glass. Jung Suk shoots this, which frees them, and they swarm the convoy, killing Hwang and his forces, which allows the heroes to escape. Upon arriving at the port, Xiao rams the jeep and takes Junai hostage, but Yoo-jin manages to distract him with a car. He shoots the grandfather of the group and manages to escape with the truck. Upon arriving on board the boat, he's then betrayed by the gangsters, but in his last breath he reverses the truck out the back, which damages the exit ramp and opens it up to zombies who flood the transport and kill all those on board. Back with Jung Suk and co, the grandfather unfortunately passes away. However, the UN helicopter that he reached out to arrives, and Jung Suk, Junai and Yoo-jin clear a path to the transport. Realizing that they're gonna get swamped, Min Jun locks herself into a truck and tries to distract the undead so that the family can make their escape. Now it's at this point that Jung Suk has a choice. He can either leave her to his fate, like how he was willing to in the opening of the movie, or he can actually risk his life to save her, a decision that he should have made the first time round. He of course chooses the latter, and this shows that, though we often make self-centered decisions, we still have the option to make things right. With the words of Chul Min echoing through his mind, he realizes that he was in a similar situation with his sister, in which he allowed her to die when he could have saved her, but didn't because of fear. This is hammered home by him telling the family that their uncle will save their mother, which in some ways rights the wrongs of his past mistakes, and the sister and nephew that he left to their own fate. Though it's often seen for the greater good to let some people make sacrifices, it's also a selfish decision on our behalf, because we don't do our all and try our best due to the fact that we think that they can take the bullet for us instead. This is a message that's needed now more than ever, and as people we have to realise that all life is precious. We must try and protect it at all costs, and it's great to see Jung Suk actually save her. The four escape on the UN craft, and one of the staff on board says that soon they'll be in a new world. However, Juna retorts this by saying the world she knew wasn't bad either, and to me this shows that, even in the hell she lived in, because she had a family, she was still able to see the good in life. This juxtaposes Jung Suk, who made a selfish decision that cost him his family, and though he managed to make it to this new world, he ultimately had nothing because he gave up on the things that mattered to him the most. It's a brilliant message that shows that, as long as we have each other, we have something, and though it is possible to live without one another, in the end, we are what truly matters. Because of his decision at the end, Jung Suk has managed to save a family from going through what he did in the new world, and he's truly made right on the wrongs of his past. The four fly off into the sunset, safe as a newly formed family, and ready to live their lives as one together. Now, before we get into the review, I just want to let you know we're giving away a free copy of the MCU Infinity Saga box set to one random subscriber. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts on the film in the comments section below. The winner is going to be chosen at random on the 15th of August, and the set will be shipped out from then to whoever gets the prize, so best of luck to everyone who takes part. Okay, so what did I think of the film overall? Well, I have to say that I really enjoyed it, though I don't feel like it quite lived up to the first entry. That's not to say it's bad, I just feel like the first film captured my imagination in a way, due to its unique setting and overall themes. Again, this isn't a bad movie by any stretch of the imagination, and it might even be unfair to compare the two, saying as they're both so different from one another. I will say though that, if you loved the first movie and zombie films in general, that you will definitely have a blast here, and outside of its slower second act, the movie is a brilliant ride from start to finish. I really hope that this film isn't delayed in its release to other parts of the world, as it's definitely worth checking out, and I recommend that you try and see it as soon as you can. Peninsula was great, and I really hope we get another film in the franchise sooner rather than later. Overall, this was brilliant, and it gets an 8 out of 10. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, so comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video then please give it a thumbs up, and if you want something else to watch then make sure you check out our breakdown of The Old God, which is going to be linked at the end. If you want to support the channel and get to see content early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on our Discord server or at Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video, you've been the best, I've been Definition, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace!